As soon as Martinez saw me, she started crying her eyes out and said this: "Please, help me." According to her, she received a message from her mother stating that this hot spring is closing 3 months from now instead of the originally scheduled 6-month period. To be honest, I had no feelings for this or for Martinez herself. After all, it had been over 10 years since we last met. But for some reason, I just couldn't leave this place as it was. I'm lending a hand because Martinez is in trouble. I guess that's not a good enough reason, huh? With those words, the curtain to my second life had opened. My name is Ethan Smith. I'm a 26-year-old employee working at a travel agency. I've been working at this travel agency ever since I graduated from college, so this is my 3rd year. I currently hold a position as a supervisor with juniors under my supervision, and my everyday life is fully occupied with tasks. However, one day, I found myself on the bad side of my boss, Mr. Baker, the department head, because my opinion directly clashed with his. Mr. Baker was notorious for being arrogant, and no one dared to argue with him. Initially, I was afraid of Mr. Baker and remained silent. But one day, I witnessed him harshly scolding one of my juniors. "That's why you'll never amount to anything. This isn't school anymore, you know. If you're getting paid, you have to work accordingly. That's common sense. Someone like you should just quit already. We belong to the planning department, not sales. Our main responsibility is planning package tours, which include transportation, sightseeing at tourist destinations, and lodging facilities. We conducted marketing research on travelers' preferred destinations and purposes of travel, as well as options that would satisfy them, and then formulated plans accordingly. In this context, Mr. Baker discarded the proposal brought by my junior right in front of him and verbally abused him. I had a particular fondness for this junior, knowing that he had consulted with me, saying, "What do you think of this?" I agonized over it all night, but I feel like it could work, after putting in a lot of effort throughout the night. That's why, when I witnessed Mr. Baker dismissing someone's efforts as if they were insignificant, I lost my patience. Before I knew it, the situation had escalated into a heated argument, and it reached a point where the head of another department had to intervene to stop us. Consequently, I was suspended for a while. Although I wasn't satisfied with the outcome, I realized that if I encountered Mr. Baker again, I might end up arguing with him once more. Therefore, I chose to accept the suspension as it was. After a while, I received a report from my junior that there was talk of transferring me to another department. This is ridiculous. I mean, they suspended you without even listening to your side of the story, and now they are transferring you. It's practically a demotion. This is too much. How can Mr. Baker stay as the department head like this, while you? I put my hand on the shoulder of my junior, who was trembling with anger. Thanks for getting so angry on my behalf. But it's okay now. If everything can be settled by me transferring, I'll accept it. Isn't it part of a senior's role to be a shield for their juniors? When I said that, he shed tears of frustration. Then, when he said he was going to make a direct appeal to the higher-ups, I vehemently stopped him. If he did that, it could reignite Mr. Baker's anger, which had finally settled down. If he incurred Mr. Baker's resentment, he might lose his place this time. This junior was far more talented than me. I believed that someday, he would surely show the kind of ability that would make Mr. Baker save. So I thought it would be fine if I took on everything and took responsibility to resolve the situation. And so, I expressed my intention to resign to the CEO. Of course, he disagreed with me, arguing that I was too rash to make such a drastic decision. They said that the investigation regarding the matter wasn't over yet, and that it was just a temporary transfer for now, assuring me that I would eventually be brought back. However, my determination remained firm. Thank you for everything up until now. If we have the chance to meet again somewhere, please take care of me then. And so, although I voluntarily resigned, I apparently left right after my suspension, so it was effectively considered being fired. Well, fired or not, I didn't care as long as I could get away from Mr. Baker. Since I lived with my parents and didn't have a girlfriend, so I had plenty of savings. I had originally planned to move out once I had saved up a certain amount, so I thought it was a good opportunity and decided to live on my own. I should have gotten a new job right away, But unfortunately, I wasn't in the mood for that right now. So, I decided to go on a trip before moving out. Working in this kind of job, I knew what kinds of shops and inns were in what places. When I looked into it, I found out that a long-established hot spring inn located near a state border was having a discount campaign, so I decided to visit. Upon contacting the said inn right away, they informed me that they were widely open, so I made a reservation on the spot for the next day onward and started preparing for the trip. Someone might have thought it was strange to go on a trip the day after officially leaving the company, but I didn't feel that way at all. I just wanted to soak in a hot mineral water bath that could heal my accumulated fatigue. That's all. I prefer traveling by public transportation over using cars to get around. I like driving, but I thought that moving around like this, stepping on the ground with my own feet, was also one of the pleasures of traveling. And around 5 o'clock, I safely arrived at the inn I had reserved. At the same time, I was so surprised that I couldn't make a sound. I had never seen a place like this before. The parking lot was empty, with only a few pickup trucks that seemed to belong to the employees parked in the back. As I had anticipated, there were no cars in the guest parking lot, no one at the entrance, and only the in-house pipe music playing forlornly. As I looked around and headed to the reception desk, there was only a small woman standing there. I wondered if I had picked a bad place, but when I told her I had a reservation, she looked back and forth between my name and face a few times and then said this. Could it be Smith? Yes. At first, I didn't know who she was, so I let out a dumbfounded voice, but when she realized this and introduced herself, I started to remember old memories. Her name was Olivia Martinez. She was a former classmate who, by chance, was in the same class as me for all 3 years of junior high school. I had almost no memories of her. As far as I remember, her parents got divorced in the second semester of the first year of junior high school, and she said she was going to attend a high school in the area where her maternal grandparents lived. So I don't know what happened after that. I mostly hang out with the boys who were in the same baseball club as me, and I only talked to girls who were on the same committee as me. In contrast to me, she spent her free time drawing illustrations or reading books by herself, and although we were in the same class, we never really had a conversation. After that, Martinez never showed up at class reunions, so I didn't know her whereabouts, but I was surprised to meet her in a place like this. She said she was now the general manager of this inn, but a question came to mind, and I asked her, "Does the young GM alone welcome guests at the front desk? Isn't that the kind of task usually handled by employees? Shouldn't the GM's role involve guiding guests to their rooms and other responsibilities?" When I said that, Martinez laughed weakly. "Haga, you've hit the nail on the head." With that, she started talking about the current state of the inn. "Nowadays," she said, "these kinds of old-fashioned inns and hot spring resorts are less popular than luxury hotels, and guests are being taken away by them." Wait, I don't think that's the case. I used to work at a travel agency, so I know, but there are quite a few people who want to stay at B&B style inns. Even foreign tourists deliberately choose places like this because they can feel the good old days. So, you mean, for example, famous long-established inns in places like UK or Ireland, right? Thinking that I had made an insensitive remark, I shut my mouth. But she shook her head with a laugh. "It's okay. It's the truth. This inn is going to close down soon anyway." Her smile was so beautiful, and at the same time, there was such a sense of melancholy that I finished the check-in process with an indescribable feeling. "So why are you here today? It's rural, and you don't look like you're dressed or carrying luggage for work, right?" Martinez spoke to me in a casual manner, but I couldn't possibly tell her that I had been fired from my job. So I decided to make something up. Well, I guess I needed a change of pace. When you're in the city, you feel suffocated by the number of people, so I thought I'd like to stretch my wings in a place like this once in a while. "I see." Perhaps sensing something, Martinez stopped bringing up topics after that. After walking down a long corridor for a while, we arrived at the room where I was supposed to stay today. The night view of the rural town that could be seen from the window was very beautiful and spectacular, but for some reason, it felt lacking. I couldn't quite put my finger on what this exquisite sense of waste was, but the scenery was still undeniably beautiful. After a while, the food was brought to the room. "This is a specialty of our chef," Especially this shrimp fry is recommended, so if you like it, feel free to ask for seconds. According to her, they use an abundance of fresh seafood caught in the nearby ocean, and especially these jumbo shrimp fries have been a hugely popular menu item since the inn's founding. Not only did it look good, but an indescribable flavor spread throughout my mouth. I gazed outside while savoring the bounty of the sea. I couldn't help but wonder why this place was so run down despite the night view, delicious food, and even the famous hot spring. The questions just kept piling up, but there was nothing I could do no matter what I thought about it. With that in mind, I focused all my attention on enjoying the meal in front of me. After finishing the meal, I headed to the hot tub deck. Apparently, I was the only guest staying today, so it was essentially an exclusive experience for me. The hot springs benefits were just as advertised on the sign, and I felt my daily fatigue rapidly dissipating, replaced by a sense of the fatigue healing components permeating my entire body. I ended the day with a level of satisfaction that seemed unimaginable for that price. The next morning, I woke up early and tried to go outside for my daily jogging routine. Then, I noticed Martinez and a few employees talking at the entrance. As soon as Martinez saw me, she abruptly said, "Please, help me," with her red and puffy eyes. According to her, she received a message from her mother stating that this hot spring is closing 3 months from now instead of the originally scheduled 6-month period. Martinez explained to me that despite opposition from her mother and grandmother, she had taken over this inn where she had spent her high school years simply because she didn't want to see it shut down. From that point on, the business wasn't profitable. Employees were giving up on the inn and leaving, with now only less than 10 staff remaining. Only those who have been working there since the previous generations had chosen to stay of their own volition. In particular, the head chef, who was in charge of all the cooking, had first-class skills. When I heard his name, I looked into it because his name sounded familiar to me. It turned out he had a history of working at a famous high-end restaurant for many years and had even been featured in the media. No wonder yesterday's food was so incredibly delicious. When I quit my previous job, I was in a slump. At that time, it was Olivia's grandmother, the previous GM, who took me in. She told me to do whatever I liked. Even though I was in a slump, the person I am today exists thanks to her. So, I'm prepared to see this and through to the very moment it meets its end. The other employees nodded deeply at the head chef's words, and they said they were doing everything they could for the survival of the hot spring inn, putting it above their own lives, in recognition of Martinez's feelings as the young GM. Looking at the employees, Martinez expressed her own feelings. "They call me the young GM, but my mom has no interest in running this inn at all, so I'm essentially the proprietress. However, since I'm not officially recognized as such, I remain the young GM. So I really wanted to prove to my mom and the others that this inn is still doing fine. But I guess my skills just aren't good enough." As soon as she said that, Martinez started crying again. The head chef said softly, while looking at Martinez with concern, "She thought she could seek your advice and assistance since you work at a travel agency. However, soon she started saying it would be too much trouble for you and she couldn't do that. I guess when she saw your face, her feelings of anxiety just overflowed." Hearing that, I started seriously thinking about what the right thing to do was. To be honest, I don't have any particular attachment to this hot spring inn, and it's not like Martinez and I were close either. Our reunion came after more than 10 years apart. But when I saw her crying, I just couldn't bring myself to leave her be. "Martinez, if it's okay with you, I'd like to help out with getting this hot spring inn back on its feet to the best of my ability." Before I knew it, I had said those words. Not only Martinez, but the employees also had surprised looks on their faces. "But don't you have to report to the office?" When she said that, I scratched the back of my head and said, I didn't mention it yet. Actually, I essentially got fired from my company the day before yesterday, so I'm unemployed right now. Well, I have a decent amount of savings, and I was just traveling to find some healing. I just decided to move out of my parents' house too, and since I have nothing to do, if it's okay with you, Martinez, could you let me help out? I tried to say it in a light-hearted way so she wouldn't feel burdened. Everyone seemed worried about my circumstances, but only the head chef answered clearly. "You must also be dealing with various hardships that you can't tell people about. I was essentially kicked out and fired too, so I understand how you feel. Everyone, since he's kindly offering to help, why don't we welcome him as a comrade? In response to the head chef's words, the employees looked at each other and then nodded firmly, but Martinez herself still seemed like she couldn't quite accept it. You may not be obliged to help out. I hate to say it, but there isn't any connection or bond between us. And you just came here yesterday for the first time. As Martinez fell into negative thinking, I shook my head and denied that idea. My mom taught me that when there's someone in trouble right in front of you, lend them a hand. She told me she doesn't mind if I didn't excel academically or if I wasn't good at sports. The one thing I should never forget is having a heart for others. Right now, Martinez is in trouble right in front of me. Isn't that enough of a reason to lend a hand? I think it's valid anyway. When I said that, Martinez burst into tears again. I'm sorry, thank you, really. And she thanked me over and over again. I checked out once and went back to my parents' house to tell them I had found my next job. My parents didn't know I had been fired, so they were surprised to find out of the blue that I was changing jobs. However, sensing that my mind was made up, they sent me off with smiles. Then, a week later, I returned to the inn where Martinez and the others were waiting. I was going to be working stay-in. You were living with your parents, right? You can stay in our vacant room. We provide full board and lodging, so please put all your effort into helping us revive this hot spring inn. That's the condition for hiring you. I hadn't found my next place to live yet, and if Martinez was fine with it, I didn't mind, so I immediately started working as an employee here. Well then, I'll be counting on you from now on. We exchanged a firm handshake, and so, my hectic new life got its start. I wasn't assigned to any particular department, but Martinez arbitrarily created a mysterious department called the Let's Revive the Inn department, and I started receiving a salary as the department head. What a sense for naming, I thought, but it didn't matter at this point. From here on out, I was going to be responsible for part of the plan to revive the hot spring inn. The first thing I started to reconstruct were the inn's profile photos on the website. How should I put it? The images were very old and low quality, or to put it simply, they were grainy photos. With this, people are gonna think this inn doesn't put much effort into PR. You know how even TV celebrities regularly update their publicity photos, right? The website is, in a sense, the window or entrance of this inn, and that's no exaggeration. Just by making the website easy to view and clean, and updating the photos, the impression will completely change. Martinez took notes while listening intently to my words. However, when it came to the website, not a single employee here had any knowledge, and they said they couldn't update it. Certainly, these things require specialized knowledge, so if they can handle it in-house, they need to outsource it. But surprisingly, we were able to take care of this right away. It's okay. I used to do blogs and stuff myself back in the day, so I have some knowledge. I've even dabbled in HTML, so how about we completely revamp the website while we're at it? You can do such amazing things. I hadn't even thought about the website at all, and no one here can touch it, so can I ask you to handle everything? I readily agreed and decided to start with promoting this in first. We could also renovate the building itself, but that came second. I thought we should first do what we could within our means, without incurring costs. And so, I started putting a lot of effort into revamping the website, even at the expense of sleep. Once the general foundation was in place, I realized something. That's right, the sense of lacking I felt about the night view that day. When I toured around the rooms again to update the photos on the website, I noticed that the trees and branches growing outside the inn were blocking the great night view from the windows. When I consulted with the other employees about this, they knew someone who could prune the trees for us. One down. After resolving the night view issue, the next challenge that came up was the photos of the food. Even though the food was delicious, if the photos were taken by amateurs, the promotional effect would be diminished. These days, we can find professional freelance photographers online, and there are even platforms where you can match with them through apps. I immediately began using such a service and found a photographer. Apparently, the said photographer had experience shooting photos for the websites of many famous restaurants. With their skills, the photographer beautifully captured the head chef's pride and joy, the full course meal, and we decided to put it on the website. Just by doing that, the website was completely transformed from that old one, and we succeeded in making it look like a popular inn. However, this was only the first step in the plan to revive the hot spring inn. Even if the entrance is clean, if the inside is a mess, we can hardly expect repeat customers. In this day and age, word of mouth also has a big impact on a store's management. After much thought, I instructed that some rooms be upgraded with value-added features while maintaining the same room grade. At other popular inns, they have villa rooms that can only be booked by one group per day. When I researched it, I found that they are fully booked for weekends and holidays more than 3 months in advance. Since this place has an amazing hot spring, how about we create a limited open-air bath with constantly flowing mineral-rich spring water just for that room? Martinez immediately put it into action. Apparently, the hot spring here has 2 types of benefits: the fatigue recovery effect that I felt, and also a skin-soothing effect. I thought if we heavily promoted this, it would attract female customers too. Also, we need to ensure that rooms are accessible to elderly and physically challenged guests. There are people who are confined to wheelchairs or have limited mobility. We decided to put these things on the back burner for now and proceed with the construction within our means. And so, the plan to revive the hot spring inn, which started with the renewal of the website, began to show results after about 6 months. This is amazing. Just by adding word-of-mouth perks, we've gotten so many posts. Inquiries about the limited rooms have also increased from people who saw this. It's busy but so much fun. Martinez seemed to be in an even better mood than usual. For me, I was just imitating methods used elsewhere, but for people without experience in these kinds of projects, it might not be something they'd easily think of. More time passed, and about a year after implementing the plan to revive the hot spring inn, the inn already has daily in-house guests, and the rooms with value-added features were starting to attract guests. They were fully booked up to the next month. It's not that people began to book all of a sudden. My former junior's cooperation triggered an opportunity. "Smith, I owe you so many favors that I can't possibly repay. This is a piece of cake." My junior said that and readily accepted my request. What I asked of him was to request his sister, a parenting influencer, to do some PR for us. We paid her a commission, had her actually stay at it, and had her post a report on social media. Then, we quickly gained attention when we sold rooms with the caption "half-price promotion for the first 10 groups to commemorate the renovation reopening." Inquiries immediately poured in. From there, things proceeded smoothly, leading to where we are now. It might be a coincidence that things have gone so well, but it's all thanks to Martinez's efforts and decisions. When we presented the budget, the other employees were skeptical. They said there might be lower-cost options. There are. But it's a fact that money is required if you want to provide something good. When I was thinking about how to persuade them, Martinez looked me straight in the eye and said this: "Let's trust his words. It'll be fine. If Smith can't do it, then who are you saying we should trust?" I still remember being moved by those words. It was the complete opposite of what Mr. Baker kept saying to me back when I was at the company. He always said this to me: "Who would trust your words? If you can do it, even a middle school student can do it. Don't get carried away." Constantly being denied like that, I gradually stopped expressing my own ideas, but being given positive words by Martinez like this changed me too. At first, I started this because I couldn't leave it alone for some reason, but now I have a different reason. I don't want to see Martinez's tears ever again. That was all. I knew nothing about her, but working together like this made me realize something. Martinez is very beautiful when she smiles. Rather than cute, it would be more accurate to say she's beautiful. In this kind of business, visuals are extremely important. The smile Martinez showed me on the day we reunited was so painful I couldn't bear to look at it. A forced smile, trying hard to put on a brave face, to the point where her cheeks were twitching. If the proprietress or GM of an inn makes a face like that, the guests will surely feel uneasy too. But with Martinez now, there's no need to worry about that. She strives to put the guests first in her words and actions every day, taking action before being told. Martinez's earnest efforts paid off, and most of the recent reviews praised the young manager named Martinez. So it's no exaggeration to say that this great success would not have been possible without Martinez. Many efforts came together and led to the current results in tangible form. And so, 3 years flew by in the blink of an eye since I started working here. One time, Martinez's mother, who had never visited here before, came to see Martinez. She walked around the inn, looked at the interior from corner to corner, and let out a small sigh. I thought we might have done something to offend her, but Martinez's mother said something unexpected. I never thought it would turn out like this. Martinez, I was sure you were gonna abandon this place. But I was wrong. It has the same shine as when this inn was first built, and it's filled with the guests' feelings. You're a fine proprietress, Olivia. Martinez's mother was an intelligent woman, but she gave off a somewhat cold impression. But her words contained warmth, and her expression as she patted her daughter's head was very gentle. It was also the moment when Martinez finally achieved her ultimate goal of being recognized as the proprietress. Sometime after that, Martinez invited me to have a meal together on my day off. There's something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. Actually, back in junior high, I had a crush on you, Smith. I'm sure you don't remember, but there was a time when I forgot something and the teacher was scolding me and you stood up for me, right? That made me really happy. Now that you mentioned it, I did remember something like that happening. I'm pretty sure that time, when Martinez told the teacher she had forgotten her homework, the teacher got furious and yelled at her mercilessly. She was about to cry after being accused of lying about doing the homework but forgetting it at home. So I stepped in between them. Teach. Martinez says she did it properly, so believe her. Why are you yelling at her like that? If I said I forgot, would you yell at me like that? You wouldn't, right? I think I was a mischievous kid back then. I might have been scolded by teachers, but I was never yelled at like this. In other words, I thought the teacher was choosing who to yell at based on the person, so I said that. Martinez said that at that time, she became aware of me and had an unrequited crush on me for all 3 years. In the end, my parents got divorced and I moved away, so it ended without me being able to tell you. I didn't have many friends, so I felt awkward about attending the coming-of-age ceremony. I actually wanted to meet you and confess my feelings, Smith, but I didn't have the courage. Martinez blushed as she talked about it. While I was happy about her fresh reaction, I mentioned something that was bothering me. But that's in the past tense, right? When I said that, Martinez slowly nodded. She probably talked about this to put an end to those feelings so she could move forward from now on. After working together like this for 3 years, I know how you feel, Martinez. I was happy to hear your feelings. Well, let's get along as close friends from now on. I think my voice was trembling a bit as I said that, but I managed to hold it back so she wouldn't notice. As Martinez confessed her feelings, it also marked the end of my own feelings here. I felt very disappointed, but even so, I was honestly happy to have made a friend I could share my true feelings with at this age. A few days later, about this hot spring's plans, we'd like to handle them at our company too. One day, someone from a travel agency came to visit. It was Mr. Baker, the department head. Apparently, after I quit, he requested a transfer from his previous department to a department mainly handling procurement and arrangements, and is now restarting as a rank-and-file employee. Ironically, I realized it after you left, how valuable it is to have someone who will directly argue with you. Haha, you can laugh if you want. I was just an arrogant department head, the villain who put you and the guy in a tough spot. However, I didn't laugh off or deny his words. I still can forgive you even now. But when it comes to work, that's a separate matter. Do you know why I accepted this offer? It's for profit. Of course, there's that, but the main reason is because I noticed your changes. You originally wanted to work in this side of the business, right? When we exchanged emails, I could tell you knew this hot spring and down to the details. Even after you downgraded to a rank-and-file employee, and even knowing there was a subordinate you had put in a tough spot, you contacted me and asked to let you handle our plans. I accepted the offer because I thought the you from back then was gone. When I said that, Mr. Baker's shoulders started shaking. He bit his lip hard, trying to hold back something spilling from his eyes. My junior, who had been silently watching from behind, came out and said this. I thought from the beginning that Mr. Baker wasn't suited for that department. I mean, he called the proposal I came up with worthless and discarded it. But after you quit and Mr. Baker transferred, another senior succeeded with that proposal and got promoted. See, Mr. Baker had absolutely no eye for talent. This was probably his true feelings. He didn't really need to say it, but apparently he held a grudge because Mr. Baker had bullied him a lot. But it wasn't out of resentment. It felt more like he was laughing about it as a past memory. Perhaps sensing that, Mr. Baker laughed out loud. It was the first time I had seen him smile. Yeah, you're right. I was totally inept when it came to planning, but I have an aptitude for this side of the business. After all, I did set my sights on this hot spring inn. That's definitely true. Well then, Smith, I'll go make some coffee, so go ahead. With that, my junior withdrew to the back, his footsteps pattering. That guy's changed. Yeah, he seems to be doing quite well since transferring here. Well, I guess it's the power of love, right? What's that supposed to mean? During the business discussion, a calm atmosphere that would have been unthinkable before flowed throughout. Shortly after that, it became passable to book our inn through the travel agency I used to work for. This brought in even more customers and made things busier, and while we've increased our staff quite a bit from before, we still have our hands full. In particular, there was a lot of high praise for the food. Receiving words of gratitude, such as delicious, from everyone, from kids to the elderly and those with allergies, brings the greatest joy and most rewarding moments for a chef. The head chef has taken on many apprentices, and now in addition to American and Asian cuisine, he makes children's plates and has recently been attempting baby food as well, because providing a comfortable space for anyone is this hot spring inn's #1 selling point. And finally, we were able to build a large hall in an annex building that can hold wedding receptions. Apparently this was Martinez's long-cherished wish. There's a church nearby, and she said it would be great if couples who held their wedding ceremony there could have their reception at this hot spring inn. So we planned it once again and successfully completed the construction. And now, the memorable first couple has appeared in the banquet hall. The wedding gown with a train was quite heavy. Hey, is that your first impression? I couldn't help but retort, and laughter erupted. Hey, don't mess with my wife, even if it's you, Smith. I won't forgive you, you know. My junior appeared, saying that. Somehow, he got married before me. After my junior joined the work here, they hit it off, and after a serious relationship, they ended up getting married. Congratulations to both of you, and may you have a long and happy marriage. Martinez, I had a crush on you too. As the joyous banquet began, my mutterings were drowned out by the congratulatory words flying in from all directions. It's probably time for me to face forward and walk ahead too. Looking at the happy faces of the two of them, I felt my heart slowly warming up.